Good morning, Phoenix Union. Today is Thursday, October 26th. Thank you so much for being here with us. Today we're going to be talking about scholarships, AskBenji, and what you need for your FSA ID. Ms. Haggerty, please take it away.
Good morning, PXU. So you probably feel like you've got a whole bunch of balls up in the air right now as you're beginning the second quarter. You're thinking about college admission, plus now you're beginning to think about your FSA ID in preparation for getting your FAFSA done. You're thinking about deadlines that are coming at you from Barrett the Honors College, or maybe you're thinking about early decision or early action programs. Maybe you're just thinking about your scholarship. So there's a lot of things up in the air right now, a lot of things to do. But the first thing we're going to do is something called Waking Up Benji. So Benji is your digital FAFSA assistant, and Benji is something that was created by the state of Arizona uh, to help high school students work on their FAFSA. So what we know is that students who complete the FAFSA receive an average of $10,000 per year in federal financial aid. So unless you've got that in your back pocket, we recommend to you to text Hi Benji at 602-786-8171. And if you do that, you'll wake Benji up. Next screen. So Benji's going to help you know what to do, what steps to take to do your free application for federal student aid to make college more affordable. So there's different ways you can use Benji. You can start by texting Hi Benji at this number. You can do it any time of day because Benji is working 24/7. But meet Benji. Uh, he was designed to help more students and families in Arizona get to college by helping them complete the FAFSA. So Benji's a chat box, and what happens is there will be somewhere between 5 and 10 times where Benji will reach out to you, but you have to wake Benji up first. Next screen. So if you can text Hi Benji to this number, then you'll get a response. It's probably going to come to you from a different number. But if you could save that phone number in your contacts so that you'll know it's Benji. Benji's going to ask you a few questions about yourself. We had some kids work on this last Saturday. Uh, It'll ask you your name and your school. And then anytime you have a question, you can go right to Ask Benji and it will respond to you with answers. It's preloaded to answer over 4,000 FAFSA or financial aid related questions. You can ask it now. You could ask it questions in December or in January or February. But it's going to also nudge you a little bit to submit your completed FAFSA by the priority date for your chosen school. So later on, it may ask you what your school is or what school you're thinking about. And then it will try to send out those nudges ahead of time. Remember to share Benji with your friends. Now, the question is really not so much where do you want to apply to school at this point, but where do you find help paying for college? So there are two basic financial aid forms. One is the free application for federal student aid. That's the FAFSA we keep talking about. That opens in December. Then there's something called the CSS profile. That's already open, and that's mainly designed for students who are going to apply to out-of-state private colleges and universities. Those schools tend to be really selective. So there are about 400 schools and scholarship organizations that use the CSS profile. Additionally, if you are a dreamer and you're applying to either in-state or out-of-state schools, you definitely have to do CSS profile in order to unlock aid. Next screen. So there are different types of federal financial aid that you might get if you fill out your FAFSA. There are grants, which are like scholarships, except the criteria for it is really not related to your GPA or your test score. It's related to your family income that you'll share on the FAFSA. There's also work-study jobs that are available either on a school campus or at certain locations connected with the school. And then there are two basic types of loans. One is for students and one is for parents. The parent loan is called PLUS loan. In other words, parent loan for undergraduate students. That's what you will be, an undergraduate student. Notice that I haven't said the word scholarship yet. So scholarships aren't a type of federal financial aid that's offered through schools by the federal government. But there are a lot of scholarships that you can start working on ahead of time. And we'll talk about those in just a few minutes. But in order to get ready to do the FAFSA in December, it'll be opening up this year for the first time in December. The date has not yet been released. Believe me, as soon as we know that date, we'll share it with you. But in order to do your FAFSA, we want you to create something called your Federal Student Aid ID number ahead of time. If you're going to get ready to do the FAFSA, you'll need your Social Security number and you'll need access to either a cell phone or your email. We'll create your FSA ID a week from today on November 2nd. So on that date, can you please bring your Social Security number? If you are a dreamer, we just want you to know you won't be able to fill out a FAFSA, but for in-state and out-of-state schools, you are already able to fill out your CSS profile. So what is a FAFSA? Or what is an FSA ID? It's an electronic signature that allows you to sign your FAFSA. So it's a username and a password combination that you use to log into the U.S. Department of Education online system. It's your legal signature. So you get to create your FSA ID, and then you'll probably have one or sometimes two parents create their own FSA ID, because you'll also need at least one, but maybe two parents, depending on who is contributing to you financially. You'll need that in order to sign legally your FAFSA. Next screen. You'll also use that each of the 4 years that you're an undergraduate. So let's look at who needs to create an FSA ID. Anyone who's required to provide information on the FAFSA. So that means if you are an eligible student, a student who's a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or an eligible non-citizen, if you have a Social Security number, you will be able to complete the FAFSA, and you'll need an FSA ID to do it. If your parent information is required on the FAFSA, they also need an FSA ID. Next screen. To get into a little bit more detail, so if you're a student, all students who are eligible to do the FAFSA have to have an FSA ID to do it. And if you are a dependent student, in other words, you live with two married parents and they filed a joint federal tax return last year in 2022, then you just need one parent to create an FSA ID. If you're a dependent student and your parents are either separated or divorced, then the parent who provided you with the most financial support in the last year, and your parent's current spouse if they've married since January 1st of this year, or if your parent was remarried prior to this date, but they filed taxes separately from their current spouse, you can just have one parent create an FSA ID. But if you are a dependent student with two married parents, if they filed separately, then you need both of them to create an FSA ID. If you're a dependent student with two parents who aren't married, but they live together, both parents also need to create their FSA ID. Next screen. Now, the reason why the FAFSA is opening later this year, 2 full months later, is because it's been revised by the federal government. There was legislation that changed it. So the free application for federal student aid is now referred to as the Better FAFSA. It's gone down from like about 104 questions all the way down to 37 questions. So what remains the same, students still need a studentaid.gov account, your FSA ID, to start your FAFSA form online. Without that, you can't fill it out. Users will be presented with the same questions when you do your FSA ID. You have to give them some personal information like your name, your date of birth, your social security number. You'll create some account information, and a username and a password, which we absolutely want you to take a picture of, we want you to write down, or we want you to keep somewhere electronically. But you need to know that because you'll be using the same information once a year every time you do your FAFSA. They'll ask you for contact information, like your cell phone, where you can get text messages, or your email. They'll ask you some questions about how you want to communicate on your studentaid.gov account. And then as a backup, there will be some challenge questions. You'll be asked to continue to set up multi-factor authentication, which some of you might be familiar with because of your student portals or even what you had to do in connection with applying to college. And then there's an identity match with the Social Security Administration that is completed when your Social Security number is provided. Next screen. There are some changes. So all contributors must have an FSA ID to access the FAFSA form this year. That means in addition to you, either one or both parents who are considered contributors. There will be an identity match required for each contributor to verify the FSA ID. There'll be a verified email address that will be required to establish an account, and users can apply without entering a social security number or an ITIN when the FAFSA opens in December. So if you are creating, like if your parent is creating their FSA ID, they won't be able to do that until December. And it will then take you probably 5 days before it will process for you to be able to do your FAFSA, submit it with your parents turning in their FSA ID. So there's a little bit of a delay, about 5 days. That's why we want students who are eligible to fill out the FAFSA to do it way ahead of time. Okay. Users without an SSN, a social security number, will complete a knowledge-based identity verification process. Next screen. So these are some of the steps that happen to create your FSA ID. We'll go over each of these steps to create your FSA ID a week from today. and we'll do it on studentaid.gov. Next screen. This is kind of what it looks like when you're beginning to create an account. You can see we're in step 1 of 7 on this screen, and it's just asking you some basic questions. Your first name, middle initial, last name, date of birth. It'll ask you for a social security number. If your parent who is undocumented needs to be your contributor and they need an FSA ID, this year, one of the changes is they can click on that little oval there. I don't have a social security number. That click will turn into a check mark, and they can still create their FSA ID. Next screen. So because there's a little bit of a difference this year, we want to make sure you know which of these scenarios best fits you. If you only want to apply and attend an in-state 4-year or 2-year college or university, and you have a social security number, then you only need to complete the FAFSA. If you are a dreamer, so if you're undocumented, regardless of whether you plan to attend a school that's in-state or out-of-state, you need to fill out the CSS profile. If you're a dreamer, you are not eligible to fill out the FAFSA. If you have a social security number and you want to attend a selective, private, out-of-state 4-year college or university, then you need to complete, if you are a U.S. citizen, an eligible non-citizen, or you are a U.S. national, and you have a social security number, you have to do the FAFSA and CSS profile. Also, we've talked now about federal student aid and institutional aid. That's the CSS profile. That unlocks a lot of money for college. In addition to that, we also want you to keep your eye on some great scholarships that are just coming open. So if you're a first-gen student, we want you to register for the Dorrance Information Session and Workshop that's happening this Saturday, October 28th, from 10 to 12 at College Depot. You can register there. You could take a picture of the screen if you want, or if you look in the Q&A, they're inserting the link right now. Next screen. The Phoenix Union Foundation for Education has also just opened scholarship season. It opened in October 19th, right at the end of break. The application closes earlier this year, so mid-January. Scholarships are awarded in April, and then the scholarships are sent out to your schools June through August. So you're eligible if you're graduating in May 2024 from a Phoenix Union school, and if you're planning on attending a university, a community college, or an accredited trade school. Okay, but you have to be planning to enroll next school year. This fund was established to help Phoenix Union students. You can see the link there on the left, but if you get on that link, a page that looks kind of similar to this pops up, and at the top right, see where that says apply here starting October 19th? It's already open. All you need to do is click there, and that takes you right into the scholarship. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we go on, but there are over 60 Phoenix Union scholarships for only Phoenix Union students. So your odds are great. We recommend to you that you apply early and you let your recommenders know early as well. Next screen. Here are some upcoming scholarships if you're interested in computing or you're interested in IT and you're a woman, genderqueer, non-binary students, and you're a 12th grader, you're welcome to apply to this. It's for your attendance at a school anywhere in the U.S., Puerto Rico, military bases. I mean, pretty much any school in the country that you're interested in going to. If you're a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or an individual who meets the requirements of the substantial presence tense, or you have a U.S. tax ID or social security number, there's an online application. There are some short essays with it and some multiple choice, and you need a recommendation. So if you're doing this, you got to get on it because there's an October 27th deadline, which is tomorrow. Next screen. U.S. Bank has a student scholarship open and offered to legal residents of the 50 states and the District of Columbia. And you have to be planning on going to either a brick and mortar or an online school. This does exclude trade schools, so it has to be a 2 or 4 year school. There is a registration form. You can get up to $10,000, but you have to do some modules, some financial education lessons. It's not hard to do, and then the drawing is random. Next screen. This one is one of my favorites every year. It's a UNIGO scholarship. It's called the Zombie Apocalypse Scholarship. The award is $2,000. You have to write a response to, imagine that your high school or college has been overrun with zombies. Your math professor, the cafeteria ladies, even your best friend have all joined the Walking Dead. Flesh out a plan to avoid the zombies, including where you'd hide and the top 5 things you'd bring to stay alive. Next screen. There's also the Voice of Democracy essay contest. The deadline is October 31st. Notice that huge award, up to $35,000. There are different levels of awards, and you have to do an audio essay submission on America, where do we go from here? So there's an application form, a required 3 to 5 minute audio recording, and you've got to type out an essay. But it's not hard to move through that process. It's a very famous competition that happens every year. Next screen. If you are heading to a 2-year community college in Maricopa, then their foundation scholarship application deadline is October 31st. This is a big deal. If you're heading to a 2-year school within Maricopa, we really advise you to do this general foundation scholarship application. You do one general application, and that gives you eligibility to a whole bunch of different scholarships. And some of them are also open to dreamers. So we recommend that you go for it. And is there an essay required? Well, yeah, but you know what? You're probably pretty good at that by now. But the deadline is coming up on Halloween. Next screen. This is a social justice related scholarship from Prudential Insurance. It's called the Emerging Visionaries, and you can get up to $15,000 through this scholarship. You have to be somewhere between 14 and 18 when you apply, legal resident of the U.S., must have started your project a while ago. And some of you who have been working on a social justice scholarship, over time, over the past couple of years, you may want to take a look at it. Next screen. The Regeneron STS STEM Scholarship is open for any student enrolled in their final year of high school in the U.S. And You have to have completed individual, independent science, engineering, or math research at any time in your life. Doesn't have to have been in the past year. You write up a report. You need 3 recommendations. There's an online application. You have to send in your transcript, some short essay questions. In other words, they make you go through some hoops for it, but I want you to take a really close look at the awards. You could have a 4-year award that pays out over $250,000. And if you are a dreamer, you're eligible too. So this is mainly for STEM students. Next screen. This one is not on the College Depot site. It's a bold.org scholarship. It's called the Dona Lupita Immigrant Scholarship. The deadline is November 12th. And all they're asking for is that you have a parent who is an immigrant single mother. This honors immigrant single mothers, and it's a scholarship that we don't know the amount to. Okay. Next screen. And finally, if you need a recommendation for scholarships, or if you need a recommendation because you're applying to Barrett the Honors College, which has a November 1st deadline, or if you're considering early decision or early action for an out-of-state school, then make sure that you're giving your counselor and teachers enough time. Have mercy. All right, thanks for joining us today. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Tuesday or Thursday.